Hi, my name is Steven, and I make fonts as arrow type. I'm continuing on the long journey of making name mono, which is a monospace version of name sans, or maybe a monospace sibling of name sans, because some of the decisions creatively are a little bit bolder, which I think makes a lot of sense in a monospace context. Recently, I've been working to specifically create an extended weight range to go from regular to thin. It's already actually available in version 0.3, I believe, with regular to black weights. But here, I'm now going down to 100, which is like a thin weight. And I already had a weight 100 of name sans, so I had a lot of like stuff to work with to get to here, but it's been a fair amount of work to kind of like bring it up to speed. And I've tried to share a lot of bits of process along the way. You can look at the playlist this video is in, for instance, to see quite a few work streams. And yeah, if anybody is watching, leave a comment to let me know like why did you stop by? Thank you for stopping by the way. And like, what kind of videos do you enjoy? I don't know that I'll necessarily adjust my plans, because part of what I'm doing here is just sharing work I'm doing anyway, rather than trying to be like I don't know, a thought leader or a content creator or something. I think there's some value in just sharing like the work that happens to put together a font. So some of the work I didn't share. Oh, one fun thing I wanted to show is that name sans has. I guess I should find it. Name sans has a. Why didn't I start with this? Here we go. This is name sans. It has significantly more axes than name mono, as you might imagine, and its weight range is actually quite a lot greater, partly because it's a display font at its maximum optical size, or at its text optical size. It pretty closely matches name mono, but it does some of its own things. One of the kind of Easter eggs in name sans is that the not def character, like the brick that shows up in InDesign, for instance, if you try to type a character that doesn't exist in a given font, it kind of like reflects the tiles of the New York Subway system. And at some places, it kind of like adapts to the weight axis, for instance. But I realized, like, looking at name mono, like, wait a minute, these tiles are so finely detailed that like at actual size, they just kind of show up as like a little dot pattern or something. For name mono, I'm going to make these like actually maybe big enough. I might even make them even bigger than this. I'm not quite positive yet. But I just kind of like want to actually make them big enough to be like a decipherable texture at like reasonable font sizes. So kind of a fun thing. My philosophy of a not def is that it should be relatively clear what it means, what it is as a not def character. It should be a black brick of some sort, basically, or a brick with an X in it or something. But it should potentially also be somewhat fun or somewhat like conceptually related to the typeface. But that's a bit of a diversion. There's a bunch of work that I had to do here that I didn't show or record in video because I was just like thinking while doing it, which what a concept, right? But it required a bit of like debugging. So for instance, I had a bunch of glyphs that were in this filter of incompatible masters, which basically means that like between regular black and thin, they're not quite compatible. And I see that the O/ is still in that category. I've got lots of videos where I fix this sort of thing. The first thing I sort of reach for is correct path direction for all masters, and that often does the trick of it. It didn't seem to quite. So then the other thing I'll do is sometimes reset anchors for all masters. The O/ has a bit of a few glyphs have these intermediate or alternate masters. These are alternate masters because in some weights it can support that bar, and then in other weights it can't. And it seems like it is working, which is funny, but apparently these shapes are out of order. I'm viewing that with show master compatibility. So let's use this shape order filter, and you can kind of already see the color coding. I'm kind of confused. I thought I already did this. It could be something else. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, basically. Maybe I need to just select all, copy, paste. Okay, that did it. It's no longer red, so all right, fair enough. That is kind of like some of the process of fixing a glyph in this category. Some of these glyphs that I haven't fixed so far are basically things I haven't totally made up my mind on whether I want them to be fixed. Let's take a quick look at this. We want Command F to find a glyph, and then r.norm. Okay, so this is something I want to be working. I'm curious. Oh, I see. Some of these have anchors that were propagated in sort of the interpolation of these base styles, which was done in UFOs and kind of as a font prep step. I don't think necessarily these are actually needed in the glyph, in the composed glyph itself. So I'm going to like reset anchors. Okay, there we go. That's all it took. I should learn this. So the normal set anchors is Command U, and this one is Option Command Shift U. So let's try that. Option Command Shift U. Cool. Okay. When I do something multiple times, I try to learn that hotkey. So back here, these actually should be exporting, please. Let's check for this one as well. It might be just the same thing. Yeah, looks like it. Okay, well, there we go. This one can export as well. And then this is like a remnant of the sans approach. I have explored fractions in the black weight, but I'm not totally sure whether I'll add those. I probably will, maybe not for the next update. I've been updating this font periodically, and just by adding a thin weight range for the vast majority of the character set, I think it'll be a big update. But I still have to do this for the italics, so that'll take some time. Why not do this one? It's kind of like the normal copyright symbol has kind of the flat-sided shape, sort of like the other round things in this font, but there is a stylistic set that does like norm styles, so it kind of makes sense perhaps to do here. So I'll just quickly show. For something like this, I sometimes really enjoy using scaling, like this bounding box. And if you don't see that, it's probably like a view option. Show bounding box. And I basically sort of take note of the stem thickness, 66. I should update that. And I've realized I've never really used these dimensions before, but they're so handy, just as like a reference. Don't know why I hadn't done that before. Ooh, another thing I did off screen was I had a guideline script to set a center guideline, and then one to do like a middle horizontal guideline. And And those are particularly helpful in a fixed width typeface where the center stays the center, rather than like a sans where you're constantly changing the width of things, or just any proportional typeface rather. But I realized, like, wait a minute, I could do all of these at the same time and also update the guidelines. So basically I set this to a shortcut key. And then if I was changing the width of the glyph, this wouldn't automatically stay in the center. So I would just hit the shortcut again to make it work. But this is really handy because in a case like this, I want it to be centered. So I can just kind of use like the extrema and these little white bits of the bounding box to say where the center is, and then I just align that. This is a cap height center, and this is the X height middle, rather, I'm calling it. This is in my Glyph scripts repo, which I usually link in the description of the videos. It's just on my Aerotype GitHub. Anyway, so all that is to say, let's add rulers to these guys so we can see our measurements. And I'm going to make it 66 units or so. This should be 56. And I'm holding Option so that these changes are like reflected up and down. Okay, sometimes small movements are hard. Haha. Okay, and then this should probably get a little more spacing. I'm not sure. The copyright symbol like can probably stand to be somewhat big compared to other things. It's a little more of a standalone character, so it may not have to be as carefully spaced as others. I always feel like a little bad saying something like that, because like I should. What the heck? One moment. The reality is that it's useful to set up kind of a hierarchy of font needs, and worry more about the glyphs that you know will be used more. So for instance, I'll spend a lot of time on the core alphabet and figures, but not as much time on something like the copyright symbol. I don't need node indices right now. Those can be helpful to design something, but cool. So that was so easy to make basically correct. I'm gonna kind of nudge these over a little bit. Cool. And then I can add this to the .norm group and set it to be exporting. Oh, we got to go back and find it because it's no longer incompatible. I'm going to export it. I'm also going to give it this even side bearings, and that's always good and bad in that in a monospace, like it then requires you to fix things all the time. But it's nice to just like see something like this where it's like quite far off. So I'm going to correct it for all layers and then nudge that over just to be centered again. And I want this to be less sharp, kind of more. So I'm going to throw that into the background with a hotkey script, and that way I can sort of follow it here. Cool. So now those look more like a right angle cutoff sort of deal. This feels like a little bit reverse contrast, kind of. Like these bits are a little too thick versus these bits. I'm holding Control Option while I do this so I can kind of reflect the change, as you can see, just to kind of boost that slightly. Okay, so that looks pretty decent. And I'm gonna throw that into the feature for, where are these? Classic uppercase, I'm calling it. Okay. And I should do it in alphabetical order probably, but this is kind of like a symbol. So copyright by copyright.norm. Cool, that's all it takes. And I should probably copy this into the italic. Okay. Ital is 1. And I'm going to put it in the features just to sort of remind myself that I have to make it happen. And for now, if it's not exporting into the font, it'll give me a little unknown glyph warning, similar to some of these. Some of these I've changed the names in a little bit to kind of adhere to the Glyphs way of naming and glyph composition and such. So I've got a lot of fixes to still make in the italic. You can see this A oganek is messed up. A lot of these don't even exist yet in the italic thin, but lots of them do. So that'll be the next big stage. And something I didn't really mention is that, like, also some of the off-screen work that I did over the weekend was I had noticed, checking the current name sans versus this, that the X height of the thin text style was like not aligning, which was a little bit of a surprise and a bit of a bad surprise. I really want the text optical size and the weights to work like quite well together when they're at the same scale. And part of that is that the X height should align. And it just wasn't quite doing that yet. And actually, this is still just a little thinner, so I might have to extrapolate it or interpolate a slightly bolder text thin style for the monospace. So I'll still keep that in mind. But yeah, the X height was like way different, and that was because I had started the mono kind of a couple point releases before I was actually sort of finished with the design of name sans that was stable as a v.1. And that's the challenge of making typefaces slowly. Sometimes they benefit a lot from making them slowly if you're still thinking about letters and working on fonts along the way. Your skills improve, and you come back to it with fresh eyes, which can be helpful. But some of the time it sucks because you just forget like some of the decisions. I try to keep notes as much as possible, like in GitHub issues for myself, so that I like know what the open goals are for the next point release. But some of the time, yeah, you'll just find things like an X height that's different, and you just have to go through like all your Latin basics. And I literally just like pop these open and went to town after shifting the X height to the correct place and just started like raising everything up again. And it didn't take that long. I also had to adjust the like combining accents to work with that, and that took a little longer. And I might still have to I will still have to proof it out and make sure that I haven't left something behind or made mistakes or whatnot. But anyhow, that's kind of the update on the family as it stands. I've got a lot of work to do on the italics, so I'll probably end up recording bits of that and sharing it as well. This italic is pretty fun, so I'm really looking forward to working on it. But with that, sort of more status report than actually work stream. I'm going to call it a session and get to my day job for today. And yeah, thank you so much for stopping by. Thanks for watching. Say hello if you're here. Love getting comments on these videos. And if you're working on something creative or something you have to do, either way, maybe it's both. Whatever you're working on, I hope it's going well, and hope you're doing well. Take care.